Welcome back and thank you for staying with KTN Prime. My guests are still with me. To my far right, we have Jacinta Onyango, who is a mother to the late Kennedy Onyango, who was killed last year during the anti-finance bill protests. Next to her, we have Timothy Turunga, who is a youth leader from Lamu County. And of course, we have Elijah Kandia-Rotok, a senior human rights officer and advocate at Kenya National Commission of Human Rights. Before we went for that particular break, we heard from Jacinta, and she did say that no one has contacted her. She does not have a lawyer, but also perhaps she does not have a guiding hand. Maybe you can guide her, not just her, but to the other families who are equally in the same situation. What's the next step? What can they do to ensure that they get justice not only for the kin, but for everyone, and equally compensation?
Thank you very much. There's a broad justice framework that is available for persons who've suffered harm within our country. First of all is that individuals who've suffered violence need to report. We understand that during the protests or the Gen Z protests, some individuals might refrain either because of fear of reprisal or because of one reason or another they were unable to. It's important for them to report these incidences so that the state is aware first through the offices of the National Police Service or through other independent institutions such as the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, such as the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, even the Commission on Administration of Justice, even other entities such as the Internal Affairs Unit of the National Police Service. Now, depending on the violation that has occurred, they can also petition their political leaders directly. For example, they can speak through their representatives and present petitions either to the Senate or to the National Assembly to say that, hey, we are here, we are hurting, and we have suffered various forms of losses, and we want to see justice. There are various committees within the Senate and the National Assembly that will come and look at these issues. And they would summon either the respective leadership, or if it's a cabinet secretary, or if it is the head of an institution, they would summon them to explain why action has not been taken for certain. For instance, why is it that there hasn't been justice for those victims and their families for the loss of life and damage of property and various injuries that were meted out, that actually were occasioned by the protests and the demonstrations. The other recourse is that they can go to advocates. There are various organizations who have advocates that act on pro bono basis, who can collect their information, reduce them to a petition, and they can jointly file a petition to the state asking for compensation, asking the court to provide them remedies. Again, our courts have been opened up so that any person who thinks that their right is threatened, or who thinks that their right has been, or when their rights have been violated, under Article 22, they can go to the court without even the necessary technicalities of either getting an advocate and say that I've been violated, or my person or my family member has been violated, and they can seek justice through the courts. And the courts can now issue appropriate orders depending on the circumstances of their cases, so that they can see some form of justice. The other one is a political process where now the politicians, especially the leadership of this country, can come and say, hey, can we have engage in dialogue so that anyone who was violated can come and speak and have their day to say that so-and-so either did this to me, and then they can order to say that we are going to establish a framework now to see how certain individuals would be compensated. So there are various avenues, but it's important, first of all, that it is known, and it is important that the state acknowledges that there are individuals actually who either died, who either were injured, or who either were disappeared, or also who suffered damage or losses occasioned by either failure to secure the security of the person and also their property.
All right. Mama, kabla nije kwako, maybe Timothy, we can hear from you. I mean, the government has been accused of being lacking empathy, they're poor communicators, failure to recognize how their actions impact those that they lead. From a youth perspective, how do you deal with the tone-deaf government?
So, first and foremost, one of the things that we use to deal with such a government is we raise our voices. And one is we use protests. But then as of now, we have seen that even the protests are not working because you're dealing with a regime which lack goodwill. They don't seem to relent. They don't seem like they really were ready to lead our country. So the only option that I know is to take this regime home. There is no any other alternative. That's the only option we have because we have a government where they lack goodwill and they don't seem to be doing anything for our Kenyans. They don't seem to be doing any development. They don't seem to be, there are no any substantial systems that are working. The systems are not working. Corruption is taking course. Because, for example, I can give an example of our deputy president. When he was the CS of Interior, even in fundraising, he couldn't even give 50,000. But as of now, per every fundraising, he's giving at least 10 million. Per month, the figures were out last month, he gave 100 million. This is money gained through corruption. Where else we have a school down there where the kids, they don't have even a bridge to cross. They are using a log to cross so that they can go to school. What does that tell you? We have a government that their focus is different. Their focus is not on service delivery. Their focus is more on looting. They are using our government as a business. And that should not be the case. Once you are given an opportunity to lead, that's an opportunity to better the lives of other people and not yourself. But then in our government is the vice versa. That should not be the case.
All right. Mama, sijui kama unafahamu, juzi waziri wa usalama Kipchumba Murkomen alisema kuwa serikali iko tayari kuongelesha wazazi walioathiriwa. Sijui kama unafahamu hilo.
Mimi nilisikia ati serikali ameomba msamaha. Hiyo ndio nilisikia.
Basi juzi na ndo nakujuza sasa juzi waziri wa usalama alisema kuwa wako tayari kuongea na familia. Sasa sijui itakuwa ni vipi, itaendelea vipi, kama watatimiza ahadi hiyo ama sivyo. Lakini ukifikiria kuhusu haki ya mwanao, ni haki gani unayotaka wewe kama mzazi?
Okay, asante. Mimi kama mzazi, kwa sababu haisirudisha mwanangu.
Pole sana kwa hayo.
Halafu kulingana na mimi kwa familia yangu, huyo ndiye alikuwa kijana yangu mwenye ni matarajio yangu, kila kitu yangu ilikuwa juu yake. Mimi saa hii siwezi sema atanisomesea mtoto, sina mtoto wa kusoma, niko na wapipito kijana. Wengine, kuna mwingine pia aliacha shule juu ako na sickle cell anemia. Na huyu wapipito pia ni mgonjwa. Hiyo sickle cell niko na wawili wako hivyo. So siwezi sema kuna kitu ni ile tu kunipangusa machozi. Kuna ahadi yenye nilikuwa na ngoja kwa maisha ya mtoto wangu. Nilijua akiwa mkubwa atabadilisha maisha yangu. Sitakuwa hivi, sitakuwa nikifulia watu. Kwa hivyo na yeye ndiye alikuwa mkubwa. So yeye ni kuniweka at least tu niishi maisha yangu at least ya milele. Juu sina tumaini yoyote, sina mwenye na ngoja, sina mwenye natarajia. So kama anaweza nipangusa machozi, ukweli kwamba hatarudisha mtoto. Nasemanga mtu akichomeka kwa uso na anapelekwa hosi, anapona, anatibiwa apone, lakini ile alama ni ile ile itabaki. So yeye aniponyeshe, alama itabaki ile ile.
Sasa wewe ukisema upanguswe machozi vipi na serikali?
Wacha niseme kwa uwazi. Aniite kama mzazi ama tuite kama wazazi. Nimesema ya kwamba atalipa maisha. Hakuna maisha, hakuna pesa inayolipa maisha. Lakini hanibadilishe maisha. Kunibadilisha maisha, anipea kiwango yenye najua hata akinipea kiwango ingine na isajenga nyumba yangu, niishi kwa nyumba yangu hiyo, najua mtoto wangu hatarudi, at least nitakuwa hapo maisha yangu yote. At least nikijenga hiyo nyumba yangu itanisaidia kwa maisha yangu. Hakuna kitu yoyote yenye anafanya mtoto wangu tena afufuke nimpate anisaidie na hiyo hadi yenye alinipea.
Na kwa Wakenya wenye wanatutizama sasa, wenye wanaweza taka kukusaidia kwa njia moja au nyingine, wanaweza kupata vipi?
kwa namba yangu.
Namba yako utatuachia labda ndio ili tuweze ama uko kwa social media mtandao?
Nitakupea ama nitasema hata sasa.
Unaweza sema ndio hata wale wenye wanasikia sasa.
Ni 0711 67 27 95 0711 6727 95. Sida yenye niko nayo kubwa, nina watoto wawili na wako na sickle cell anemia. Na unajua kitambo hata kama nilikuwa nao sikuwa naona sana juu nilikuwa na huyu akiwa active na yeye ndio mkubwa. So nilikuwa niko na hope hata kama hao ni wagonjwa, niambia mama hata kama wako wagonjwa nitawapeleka kwa hospitali ya maana na nitakujengea nyumba au watakuwa sawa. So unajua nilikuwa nimeweka tu mimi hata kama hao ni wagonjwa niko na mwingine. Saa hii simesikia nikikwambia sina school fees juu niko na wapipito. Huyo ndio sasa mtoto wangu yenye atasema asubuhi anavaa nguo anaenda shule. Na last year alisoma first term peke yake, ugonjwa ikamlemea. Second term, third term hakuenda.
Pole sana.
Juu ya hiyo ugonjwa. Sasa zingine wanakosa dawa. Kama sasa hivi nimeacha huyo mkubwa, hii mguu yote imefura. Hana dawa. Inafaa watumie kienyeji, mara wakule fruit. Mimi mapato yangu iwezi manage hizo. So na manage vile naweza. Na kitambo hata kama walikuwa hivyo, hata kuna huyu mkubwa alilala sana usia akaongezwa damu, maji, lakini bado nilikuwa na hope siku ingine watatoka hapo through Kennedy Onyango.
Na usife moyo mama. Na kuna mwenye anauliza hii namba yako akikutumia M-Pesa italeta jina gani? Jina lako ama
Jacinta Ochieng. Jacinta Anyango Ochieng.
Haya. Chatuone labda Mungu atatufungulia njia, uwezi jua in one or the other. So coming to you even as we perhaps wrap up this conversation, Timothy, I'll start with you. Today the CS Interior was making a spot check around, making rounds, just seeing what was destroyed, where we're at as a country. And at some point, he termed yesterday's protest as an attempted coup. Maybe you can speak to that.
The youths were peaceful during the protests. The commotion came in where the goons, state-sponsored goons, took over the streets. And I wouldn't call it a coup because this is a way where the citizens are expressing their displeasure in this regime. This is where the citizens express the agony in that they're not satisfied with what the government is offering. They're not working. So that was not a coup. That is just a way of the youth reminding this regime that they have to work. And they were given 5 years. They were given a mandate of 5 years where they're supposed to work. As I listened to a case of our mother here, how I was thinking, how I wish that all those empowerment programs that they are pretending that they're empowering people, how about if those sum of money they were used to compensate these families, because they've been last they were 60, now they have added 20 more. So how about if all those sum of money will have been used to try and compensate these families, And we have a regime where they don't care about the well-being of our citizens. We had the case of Ojwang where they took him from his home in Homa Bay, and then they came and killed him here in Nairobi. Okay, they said he was killed by other inmates, but then as you check the CCTV footage that was recorded when they went to the hospital, you can see that even the police officers that took him to the hospital, they were not in a hurry. That shows you that by the time he was going to the hospital, they'd already killed him. So this is a regime where it seems like they are not an option. And what I can say is, I can just remind our president is, as the youth, we will not relent, because we cannot let this government end our future for just us entertaining them. We'll continue raising our voices. The unity is going on. So we can either take them home come 2027, which I encourage all our youths to register as voters. And when it comes the election day, they turn out in big numbers. And then another option is, we can also take them home by the youth also occupying state house, because they feel like 2027 is too far. They can't wait. And that's a very concern that is raising a lot of issues. That's why during the protest, some of the youth were just 100 meters away from the state house. they were just a few meters from changing things of this country, yes.
Right, but that's not the right direction to take. If we're looking at the rule of law, let's not forget that.
Yeah, that's not the right one.
All right, coming to you, Elijah, I mean, the CS equally said one thing today, and I believe he was addressing the police officers. He said guns are not decorations. We're coming at a time where the country is sort of protesting the increased cases of police brutality. And then here we are having an entire cabinet secretary come out and tell these police officers that, you know what, these guns are not decorations. What does that say to you as a Kenyan?
Well, I would say first that it is unfortunate remarks that were made by the CS. And I would just indicate that first, that the National Police Service is an independent institution led by the Inspector General. That being said is that they have an operative law, which is the National Police Service Act, and they also have their own service standing orders. Now, when a political leader, such as the Cabinet Secretary for Interior, makes such utterances, then it should not be seen that it will interfere with the independence of the National Police Service.
Okay.
And so every officer has a duty to abide by the law, by the rule of law, and for instance, if they act upon such declarations, or to say either they use their firearms in a manner that it would be considered unlawful, then not only those officers would be taken, would face the law for their unlawful act, but they would the people who are also commanding them might find themselves under the principle of command responsibility as being held to account for either failing to act against the officers below them, or by issuing orders that would lead to either acts that might be considered as unlawful. And so I would say that there are specific instances where an officer is required to use their firearm. But of importance is that the courts came out strongly to say that at no point should firearms be used against peaceful and unarmed protesters. And so they have clear tactics that the police are to use in specific circumstances where there is the immediate threat of their life or the immediate threat of the life of another person. And the use at that point is not to kill, but just to de-escalate the situation by either maiming the individual so that they are able to address to de-escalate a situation, and also take steps to report to IPOA, to report to their seniors, and also to take steps to allow this in person to be taken immediately to a nearby health facility or a hospital, and also inform their families that a certain incident has occurred. But in the recent past, we have seen this not happening. So I would say that for such utterances, it is important that the police remember that they are serving an independent institution, free from any political interference, and free from any orders that might be considered as unlawful in the eye of the public.
Aya, mama, utakuwa mwisho kuongea. Unapotoka hapo unaenda nyumbani unalala. Kesho, je, umepata nguvu mpya kutafuta haki ya mwanao?
Ya kwanza wacha nirudi nyuma kidogo, kuna mahali hapo palipa justice, kuna mahali nimeacha.
Tafadhali.
Rais akon justice ya kwanza yenye nafaa nione polisi mwenye aliua mtoto wangu. Juu kwanza nikisema nijengewe nyumba ama nifanyiwe nini ama nipewe pesa, watakuwa wanaua wakipeana pesa. Wanajua pesa iko, wacha tuue, tutawalipa. Hawa mama wanataka pesa, sio pesa kwanza. Mtu asitoke hapa akifikiria niko hapa juu ya pesa. Nataka yule polisi mwenye aliua mwanangu, rais ako na uwezo wa kumjua. Na pia kuna uwezo wa kujua nani alikomanda au wasuti na waue. Nataka hiyo justice hiyo. Nione polisi mwenye aliua mwanangu ameadhibiwa. Hiyo ndio kitu ya kwanza. Juu wakisansa kuua watakuwa wanaua, wanatulipa, wanaua na atuoni wenye wameua. Yule amliua jana, ameua leo na anavaa uniform na ako kwa kasi. Hiyo ni mbaya. So hiyo ndio justice kubwa yenye nataka kwa maisha yangu. Alafu nitafurahi, hata mwanangu atalala na amani. Lakini sasa yeye lala na amani juu yule anaendelea tu kuua na namuona na kuna uniform. Spirit yake namuona. Hata rais anamjua. Akona hiyo uwezo, hiyo ndio naomba.
Okay.
Tena hiyo umeniuliza nikilala. Mimi wacha nikuambie, hata picha ya kijana wangu nikikutana naye hapa kwa simu vile nakutanga nayo, nalia. Chenye naniumiza ni sasa sina hope yoyote. Hiyo ndio nimekaa kama niko na mtoto mmoja. Umefaa waiona wakati wale wamelala na yeye ananipea hope, mama na dance. Alafu alikuwa anapenda jokes, alafu anapenda kuweka movie ya Mr. Bean. So wanacheka mpaka wale wanasikia uchungu inaisha wanacheka. So nilikuwa na alafu akona ahadi mingi, kumbe mtu mwenye anaenda kukufa anapeana ahadi mpaka nafurahi. So sai sina, yani hata nikilala nikiamuka sina tumaini yoyote kama rais mwenyewe na ndio baba wetu na alisani danganya atakuja kuniita. 1 year imeenda, sai tuko na mwaka. Kesho Kennedy alikufa date ya 27 mwezi wa 6. Kesho sasa ilikuwa Thursday. Sasa unajua mimi kufika kesho najua ukweli ni uongo na ni uongo. Hajai niita. So nimeona sina hope yoyote. Mimi nikilala nikiamuka na kuambia mimi hata nalalanga masaa 4. Juu saa hii nafika naomba. Nauliza Mungu ni kwa nini? Mtoto wangu alikufa sikuona hata aliuliwa aje. Juzi nikaona style yenye aliuliwa ni ile style yenye walishoot yule mwenye alikuwa anauza max. Juu mtoto wangu alikuwa anakimbilia kitabu. Labda hata aliona imechacha akajificha vile yule wa mask alikuwa amejibana mahali akasutiwa hapo. Nilikuja kulia nikajua ni hivyo ndio waliua mwanangu. Hiyo style niliona, lakini hakuna kitu yenye hao wamefanyiwa. Bado wako kwa serikali. Ndio maana hii mauaji bado inaongezeka.
Pole sana, na tunaendelea kukuombea ili Mungu aweze kuwafariji, awapatie nguvu, ndio muweze hata nyinyi mkitafuta haki muwe na hiyo nguvu. Kwa hivyo tutaendelea kuombea. Sasa najua waona uko peke yako, lakini hauko peke yako. Well, that's how we wrap this conversation here on KTN Prime. Thank you so much to my guests. We had Jacinta Onyango. She's the mother to the late Kennedy Onyango, who was killed last year during the protest. Next to her, we have Timothy Turunga, youth leader from Lamu County, and Elijah Kandiro Tok, senior human rights officer and advocate at KNCHR. Well, we're not done with the bulletin yet. Let's just take a look at some of the stories. A section of members of